Hi guys, it's EG here. I am, as you can see, in a completely different setting from what all of my other videos have shown. I am in Edinburgh now. This is my flat, lovely yellow walls and no bookshelves, unfortunately. So I'm still recovering from my jet lag and the sickness I picked up from being around many other people who are also sick at the airport. So I'm going to do something a little different this week. Instead of doing a video on writing processes and tips, I had one planned for world building tips. I'm going to do sort of an audiobook style narration of one of my short stories. I'll put the full text of the story up on my website with the link down in the description, and I'd be really interested to hear what you guys think about this sort of video. So that was my story, The Wrong Cup of Tea. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really have no idea how people figured out that honey was still good after many thousands of years. Ages. So without further ado, here is The Wrong Cup of Tea, a short story set in 1920s. University student Gregory Watkins was tired. Not tired of life, that is. He was in Egypt during the most interesting time ever recorded, working as a research assistant to the famous Howard Carter. For goodness sakes, he was working on the tomb of King Tutankhamun. Now, he was absolutely thrilled to be part of this experience. But after having worked all day in the stifling, cramped tomb, trying to extricate various objects without them falling apart, fighting his way through the throngs of tourists who had come to see the excavation, he just wanted to sit and watch the sun go down with a nice cup of tea. One problem. The only tea they had left until the supply train came was a bitter, distasteful American blend that one of the other archaeologists had brought. Either that or the Arabic coffee one had to strain through one's teeth. He was British, for goodness sakes. He wanted tea. Watkins pushed his way into a canvas tent that served as the kitchen area. It was little more than a collection of dry goods and a chemical ring set apart from the collection of jars and pots that had come from the tomb and were unable to be categorized. There was a kettle already sitting on the ring, someone's luncheon cup of tea, Watkins supposed, and enough water for 2 cups. He lit the ring and looked around the dry goods for some cinnamon or sugar or anything to make the taste of the tea better. Watkins flinched as he took in the sugar. Someone had left the lid open during the windstorm, and it was mixed with granules of sand. Great. And the cinnamon was gone, which left the clay pot that was dirty but had its seal intact. It looked like one of those things the workers would have brought in from a local village. Maybe it was a sweetener, maybe it was a hoarded jar of condensed milk, or maybe it was something else entirely. Watkins heated a knife over the chemical ring and opened the seal. The lid to the jar popped open, and inside, some sort of crystalline structure. Great, Watkins muttered. The honey's gone solid, too. Watkins chiseled out a chunk of the substance and dropped it into the bottom of his cup. The kettle boiled with a rather subdued whistle. Watkins couldn't agree more. He would finish his work here and then get a doctorate of philosophy in the field of ancient Egyptian history. It was pretty much guaranteed, him working on the Tutankhamun dig and all. The entire world was enamored of that dig. Egyptian fever. Everybody wanted their hands on a piece of the dig, and Watkins had been there when the tomb was unsealed. He smiled to himself as he poured the brewed tea into his cup and stirred vigorously to get the honey to liquefy. Yes, working on this dig was bound to get him his degree, maybe even a degree with honors. The tent flapped open, and none other than Howard Carter himself came into the tent, closely followed by a couple of other workers, some sort of photographer and a clerk, Watkins recalled. "Tea, sir?" Watkins offered helpfully. "It's freshly brewed, and this honey is a bit thick, but—" he took a sip. "It's not bad." Carter froze and stared at Watkins' tea. "Honey?" "Yes, found it in this jar. It's a bit old, needs to be soaked in water for a while, but it's perfectly edible. Even tastes fine, though I wouldn't compare it to our own honey. Must have come in on the last supply train from America." Carter made a strangled sound in his throat. "You found it in that jar?" he squeaked. Watkins frowned and poured another cup. Carter wasn't sounding too healthy. "Yes, sealed and everything, so the sand stayed out. Sugar's ruined, though," Watkins said. He raised his knife to chisel off another piece for Carter's cup, and everyone, including the photographer, let out a cry. "What?" Watkins asked. "That pot," Carter said, jaw tense, "was pulled out of the tomb this morning. You, idiot, have been drinking tea with 3,000-year-old honey." "Oh," Watkins said, looking down at his cup. "Well, it's quite good honey for being that old, then." Carter let out a roar and charged at Watkins. The fight was brief and ended up with Watkins on the ground, nose bleeding, flat unconscious. He woke in his own tiny cot, head throbbing. It was difficult to breathe. Watkins groaned and sat up, which only made the pressure worse. "You really messed that up," one of the other university students smirked. "Carter's been rampaging all morning." "Harumph," Watkins muttered. "He wants to know what it will take for you to get on the next boat out Alexandria and never, ever come back to one of his digs," the student grinned. "I just wanted my degree," Watkins protested. "How was I to know the pot was from the tomb? It hadn't been labelled and was mixed in with the dry goods. So a degree. A recommendation for a degree. I think I can manage that," the student mused. "And you'll stay out of the field?" Watkins scowled and touched his nose tenderly. "I just wanted a cup of proper tea." "If you get on that boat, you'll never have to worry about tea again," the student said. "Just go away before you ruin the entire dig." Just like that, the student left. Watkins grumbled and flopped back onto his pillow. He had just wanted a cup of tea. 2 days later, and he was on a boat out of Alexandria, Carter's letter of recommendation in a pocket, and a notebook before him in which he wrote up his latest findings. "Honey," Watkins wrote, "is an extraordinary substance. It can last, when sealed, for thousands of years, and still be perfectly acceptable as a sweetener in a cup of tea." Watkins scratched out the last sentence. Perhaps best not to tell the whole world how he knew honey was so remarkable. They might not be as understanding as Carter. But I thought it'd be fun if it was more or less a mistake. So that's all I have for you guys this week. I'm going to go drink copious amounts of tea without honey and probably take another nap. Bye.